Another death-adjacent topic today. When someone's long-term partner dies, it can shatter their life. More so if they have kids who just lost a parent as well. Many feel they have lost their soulmate and never want to date again or feel the need to date again. But for many, getting back into the dating pond after losing a partner is the done thing and something that they want. So we're going to look at the common issues around this situation. On one side, dating as a widow or widower, and on the other side, those dating someone who has lost a spouse. Before we begin, we post death and dying related videos every Friday. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, consider subscribing to the channel. Now let's talk common issues when dating after loss. We should preface this by saying some people have strong degrees of emotional intelligence and self-awareness, and it's these people who, after the loss of their spouse, will get themselves into therapy, get their kids into therapy, acknowledge their grief, and generally take care of themselves before taking the big step and getting back into the dating pond. This video isn't for those people. They're already on the right track. More power to you, and I sincerely wish you all the best. But for the others, how long after losing my spouse should I start dating again? Let's start first with a look at that word should, implying that it is expected of you. You should never feel like you have to start dating after a certain time period. Now that should be obvious, but you may start to feel pressure to do so from those around you. Your parents, for example, are often a quite common source of this pressure, particularly if you're a bloke. There is often this expectation that you provide your children with a mother figure. And even if you don't have children, there's often that get back on the horse mentality that the people around you may have through some twisted sort of logic that'll help you move on. You do not have to provide a mother figure, jump back on the horse, or in any way enter the dating pond if you don't want to. And I cannot make that more blunt. Doing so when you're not ready or willing will make your grief worse and often lead to dating disaster. So the other question in all of this is, when is too soon to move on? Obviously, people vary, situations vary, how you handle it varies, we all know that. But before moving on to chapter 2, as many widows and widowers call it, you need to have dealt with your grief. And that's different from getting over your grief. There's no such thing as getting over grief. You simply learn to deal with it and process it. But a good sign that you haven't dealt with it yet is that you feel strongly one of the following: shock, numbness, sadness, denial, anger, guilt, helplessness, depression, and/or yearning. To put a number on it, at bare minimum, I'd say a year, 2 years if you have kids. And on the flip side of that, if you're the one dating a widow or widower and it's been less than a year since the spouse died, you'll probably be seeing some red flags from both sides there. And if you are dating someone whose partner is terminally ill and probably has less than 6 months to live, let me be frank. Hopefully there is a hell for you both to burn in. There is also the question of, why are you jumping back into dating? For many, they simply feel it is the right time. They've processed what they need to. They feel good about letting someone new in which case I sincerely wish you all the best. But there is one very common reason that some seem to have, and there's actually a lot of studies on it, and it's when usually men move on super quickly because they do not feel they can or do not want to cope with so many new responsibilities. That is to say, they don't feel they can cope with parenting and household chores that their dead wife used to do most of. And this is the two extremes that we tend to see in blokes in this situation. They either never date again or they move on too soon, sometimes before their partner has even died. So if you are moving on quick because you simply do not want to feel your feelings or simply do not want to step up, I'd say both of those are the wrong reasons to date again, and it's something potential partners should carefully watch out for. Speaking of partners, dead versus ex. There's a common occurrence that happens in these new relationships. The new partner falls for the widower or widower, as in any dating situation, but instead of acknowledging the deceased partner as dead, they look through the lens of the person being an ex. And that tends to go fine until about a year into the new relationship, where their insecurity about the deceased partner and the love that their new partner has for them. And the arguments will start about how they feel like they're always competing with the deceased memory. They get mad that there's still photos of the deceased up, or that their partner visits the deceased grave on special days, or heaven forbid the kids mention the deceased parent's name. So let's be clear. The dead partner is not an ex-partner. And people going into these relationships seem to know that on a superficial level, but don't seem to acknowledge it on a deeper level. Your new partner and the deceased did break up or divorce. There weren't hard feelings. There wasn't an emotional ending to the relationship, even though there was very obviously a physical ending, so to speak. So here's some advice. If in the first few weeks of meeting them, all they seem to talk about is their deceased partner, then they are not ready to move on. They may want companionship, but they're not ready for a relationship. But say they are ready to move on, then they won't be talking about their late partner all the time, often consciously because they don't want to put you off, which is fair. But down the track, as they get more comfortable with you, they will mention their late partner because that's a big part of their life, just like everything else that encompasses someone as a person. Then we skip to 3 months in. Are they comparing you with their late partner? If so, they're probably not ready to be in a relationship yet. But if they're not, you don't have any reason to be insecure. They see you as a unique person, a new chapter, as we said earlier. A widow or widower has every right to have a few pictures up on the walls of their late partner. They have every right to visit the grave of their late partner on special occasions. They have every right to spend time with their in-laws. Now, if they keep an urn on the bedside table with their late partner's cremains in it, that would be a red flag. But if they're on the mantle or in the living room, that is their right. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're not ready to move on. And if you are still insecure about that, that is a you thing, and this relationship may not be right for you. The deceased is not an ex. Don't delude yourself into believing that. Replacing a deceased parent. We touched on this a bit, but it is worth a deep dive. If you are a widow or widower with children, you need to understand that your choice to date will have repercussions with your children. Some mild, some extreme. And if you're one of those people who starts dating a couple months after the death, and when your children express their unhappiness in this, you turn to them and say, "Don't be selfish, you should be happy for me," prepare for your children to go no contact with you and leave you as soon as they're able to. It constantly amazes me how some people can have so little emotional intelligence. But perhaps it is many years later, you've dipped your toe back in the pond and you've found someone that you really enjoy spending time with. Even if your children are adults now, expect that they may be a little uncomfortable. They shouldn't be yelling at you or telling you that it's not right, because you absolutely have every right to enjoy chapter 2 in this. However, even if it's been a while since the death, if they are still young kids or teenagers, you need to prepare yourself for any reaction they may throw at you and know how to deal with it rationally. Remember, you're still the adult in this situation. They need to be reassured that this new person is in no way replacing the deceased parent in your life or theirs. Because for the love of anything that's holy, if you and this new person try to force them on your kids as a replacement parent, your relationship with them will sink quicker than the Titanic and be just as impossible to resurrect. Like we said earlier, we see this more so in fathers trying to replace the mother figure in their kids' lives, but it does happen the other way around as well. And it can go as far as the new partner and parent demanding the kids don't see their grandparents from their mum's side because they need to move on and they have a new mother now. Or letting them visit their mother's grave, or demanding that the kids call this new woman mum. And allow me to be frank here, there is no debate on this. This is a toxic environment for a child to be raised in. You are not doing anything positive for them, even though you are trying to delude yourself that you are. But allow me to give you an example of this kind of situation working out well. Back in primary school, I was in class with a boy whose mum had been sick for years, and I'm not sure what it was with, but when we were all 10 years old, she lost her battle and died, leaving behind her husband, this 10-year-old boy, and his 6-year-old sister. Fast forward to my first year of uni, and this kid was in one of my units, and we got talking about his family. And this is what he told me. His parents had already put him and his sister in therapy about a year before his mum died, and he was made to go for the next 2 years after she passed. Which he admitted at the time there were days when he would fight it, but he is adamant that it was the right thing for the adults around him to make him do. His father also went into therapy for quite a few years. Fast forward 4 years and this kid is now 14. Things have settled down and he starts to notice that his dad has been dressing up a bit, wearing a bit of nice cologne, but he doesn't say anything. A few months later, the father sits his kids down and reiterates just how much he still loves their mother, that no one will ever be able to replace her, and in this house, she will always be remembered. However, without her being there for so many years, he's become lonely, and he has met a lady who he's been seeing for some months now, and would it be okay with them if in the near future he was to introduce them? And when talking to this guy, he said that the fact that his father asked whether they would meet her, not demanded or just brought her home, meant a hell of a lot to him. And this father made sure they had a month to wrap their minds around it, while making sure they knew that he wasn't replacing their mother. So cut forward a month, and this new lady comes around for dinner. And it's a bit awkward, but no more so than meeting any other random stranger, he said. And from there, every couple of weeks, she would come round when the kids were home, as opposed to suddenly being there all the time. He says she never forced a relationship with them. She took an interest in them as individuals, not just as her new partner's kids. As time went on, his father would still speak to his kids about their mother, and the new partner was open to hearing about the late mother and was very adamant that she was not there to replace her. This guy said it also helped that both sets of grandparents were still very much included in his life, and his dad would never dream of leaving his late wife's parents out of special occasions. So the point is, it can work if you consciously make good choices. Yes, there are gonna be mistakes. Yes, you're gonna have some uncomfortable moments. Yes, it does mean that everyone involved needs to have a certain level of maturity and empathy, but it can be done. If you are the child or adult child in all of this, on one hand, try to be open-minded. If you can see that your parent is really trying to do the right thing, like we mentioned in this story, even if they are making a few mistakes, try and be empathetic, because your parent is human too and they deserve happiness. However, if they are not trying, if they are demanding that you see this new person as a replacement parent, if they have not got you the professional help that they should have, stop for a moment. Think for a moment about what kind of parent, what kind of person that parent was before the death of your late parent, and be honest with yourself. If they were emotionally involved as a parent, if they were a good partner, then there may be hope, and conversation and possibly family therapy could help. If, however, you come to realize that they were never emotionally involved or good with their emotions and were a shit partner, it stands to reason that they probably won't be changing. So don't hold out hope that they will, because it will just cause you pain and won't change anything. If you are in this situation, or you're dating someone who's previously lost a partner, or you yourself have lost a partner and aren't sure if it's time to move on or what to say to the kids, please know you can always book a consultation online with us and explore these feelings and the situation that you find yourself in. Don't let those uncomfortable feelings fester. And with that, go talk death.